When you talk about quick guards, though, guys, let's talk about our quick guard, Payton Pritchard. Guys, tonight, Payton Pritchard is your SeatGeek player of the game, guys. Before we jump in to Payton Pritchard, let me give a quick shout out to tonight's and really every night's sponsor of the post-game show. Excuse me, guys. It's the holiday season, and what better gift is there than buying your loved one a trip to the TD Garden or any arena in the NBA to watch the Boston Celtics or any team play basketball? Guys, right now, use code Celtics Weekly at checkout on SeatGeek for $20 off your first purchase. There really is no better gift than the gift of basketball, guys, and it's the holiday season. So we really hope you guys use our code. Link is in the top of the description. Guys, let's talk about Payton Pritchard, because just as soon as you think it's gotten as good as it could possibly get with Payton Pritchard, he just gets a little bit better, Justin. Tonight, 29 points, 7 rebounds, 1 assist, and a 16 from the floor. The dude was doing it from downtown. He was doing it from inside. It was step back, stumbling, falling. It was amazing to watch Pritchard tonight. What did you like about Pritchard in tonight's matchup against Chicago?
What I liked about Payton Pritchard was that he was Payton Pritchard, and he's consistently Payton Pritchard, right? And this guy is going to be, if this man is not sixth man of the year come June or July, I don't know what to say, right? And I understand it's early, but he's sure as hell making the case to win in that position right now. 29 points tonight, 19 of which coming in that fourth quarter. As Seamus mentioned earlier in the episode, Derek White went out with a sore foot, was doubtful to return, eventually didn't return. So Payton Pritchard was that man in the fourth quarter. And it seemed as if, when we talk about when the ball is in Jason Tatum's hands, now when the ball's not in Payton Pritchard's hands or Jason Tatum's hands, nothing was going on tonight. Payton Pritchard, to me, essentially changed this game. And when we were kind of chatting about who the player of the game should be, and I had mentioned to you guys, well, Payton Pritchard. Yeah, Jason Tatum had that sweet double-double. He really had control of that game.
I was Jason Tatum tonight, but
and Payton Pritchard changed the entire trajectory of the game. Had Payton Pritchard not been inserted in early that fourth quarter, he might have not given us the boost. We just had a YouTube video up 2 days ago talking about how the Celtics bench has been able to boost this team in certain situations when the starters aren't performing up to par. Payton Pritchard, yet again, did that. We're going to have another YouTube video talking about how Payton Pritchard is continuing to dominate off the Celtics bench. So just a stellar performance tonight. And I mentioned it in last episode when talking about Payton Pritchard in this bench. It's not the points that he's scoring. It's how efficient he is doing it. 10 for 16 tonight, 7 of 11 from the floor. Feed the hot hand. I was so upset when the Celtics had a 10-point lead and they went away from Payton Pritchard in that fourth quarter. And all of a sudden, that 10-point lead dwindled down to 3. And when you had to win by 16, oh my gosh, my heart was racing. My heart was absolutely racing. But on your point, Rob, about Jason Tatum, player of the game, not discrediting what Jason Tatum has been able to do, because Jason Tatum, yet again, as we talk about Payton Pritchard continuing his sixth man of the year campaign, Jason Tatum tonight continued his MVP campaign. But on Franco's point, at which he talked about in the group chat, we expect this from Jason Tatum. We expect this on a nightly basis from Jason Tatum. And I'm not trying to throw shade at Payton Pritchard, but 29 points is very hard to come by when you're behind the rotation of Jaylen Brown, Drew Holiday, and Derek White, right? So I just really want to give flowers to Payton Pritchard. Gave my flowers to Nimi the other night. Payton Pritchard gets his flowers tonight. He is tonight's SeatGeek player of the game, and he deserves it, baby.
Is it crazy, guys, to say that right now Payton Pritchard is the best bench player in the NBA?
Well, considering he's favored to win sixth man of the year, I would say, he has to be up there. I mean, obviously there are other guys that you would consider maybe in the long run.
Reed, maybe.
The Nas Reeders out there.
Right.
Nas Reed is tough.
But Payton Pritchard, I mean, what he's done this season cannot be denied. I mean, he's one of the most confident shooters in the entire NBA. He's one of the most confident players. And Scal mentioned it on the broadcast. He wants these minutes He wants all the minutes possible. He could play 48 minutes if they would allow him to, and if it was healthy. He really would. That's the kind of mentality that Payton Pritchard has. And to have a player like that within the organization, I think it definitely lifts up everybody else on the roster as well. And Payton Pritchard, what he did tonight, I don't know if the Celtics win this game without Payton Pritchard. I really don't. 19 fourth quarter points. The Celtics were really they were really there in that situation early in the or late in the third, early in the fourth. We were looking at it going, okay, we want to blow out the Bulls for point differential, but please win the game. Just win the game. We were not at some point we weren't even worrying about point differential. We were like, just win the game, please. And Payton Pritchard, not only did he add to that point differential a little bit there, especially with Sam Hauser's shot at the end, give credit to him again, but he led the way in the fourth quarter for the Celtics team, and eventually the Celtics were able to pull out this win comfortably. I remember there was about a minute and 2 minutes left. There was about a minute and a half left, right? And I'm thinking, okay, literally 15 minutes ago in this game, we were thinking that this was going to come down to the wire. It was going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. The Bulls even had a little bit of the advantage, and yet we were sitting there with a minute and a half going, okay, let's add to this point differential again because we're clearly going to win this game. And that was all up to Payton Pritchard. And he took over Derek White's minutes, as I mentioned earlier. And you guys mentioned too, he went out with a sore foot in this game. If Derek White doesn't go out, who knows what actually happens because Payton Pritchard's minutes go to Derek White. And in that scenario, he likely doesn't score 19 fourth quarter points, and this game looks a lot different. So Payton Pritchard right now, he's the clear favorite to win Sixth Man of the Year. Now, of course, we still have a pretty big portion of the season left. We have a really big portion left, and that could change over time because it's not just Payton Pritchard's performance, it's other guys' performance too. It's like Payton Pritchard could average 15 the rest of the season, and somebody else averaged 25 off the bench, and that there goes Payton Pritchard's Sixth Man of the Year. But he definitely has to be in the top 5 for bench players this season because even you guys touched on it a little bit earlier that the Celtics offense right now running through other guys, it doesn't look as good running through other guys as it does Payton Pritchard. And he's almost making the case to not start. I don't want to say start necessarily, but he's like making the case that his minutes are more and more important as the season goes on because he is one of the 5 best players on the Celtics right now? I think he is right now. Maybe not in the long run of everybody's talent, but right now,
I think
he might be one of the Celtics' 5 best players.
I think he might be like the third best. So far this year has been playing like the third best on this team. I think Tatum obviously is one, and then I think there's a conversation to be had. And I know this might be crazy with Pritchard and Jaylen Brown, and I'm not. That doesn't mean that I'm categorizing Payton Pritchard in the tier of Jaylen Brown or nothing like that. I'm saying he's better than none of that. But in terms of what he's done with the time he's had, I mean, it's to a point. I texted you guys this tonight. Boston, really, the past 5 or 6 games, it's been really noticeable here, has not been able to create any offense when Jason Tatum and Payton Pritchard are not on the floor. It's like it is clear as day. When the ball isn't in Jason Tatum or Payton Pritchard's hands, there is essentially no facilitator. And as sitting back and as somebody who's watched hundreds of Celtics games at this point, right? It's surprising that you have Derek White, Drew Holiday, Jaylen Brown, and that's a problem that those guys aren't able to create. So my question to you guys, and obviously it's easy to harp on Jason Tatum and why he's so good at it and why we're so good when he's on the floor, right? But it's like, what is it with this team right now that is just their offense goes dry when these two aren't out there? I mean, what am I missing? Because it makes no sense to me.
I just wanted to say the performances that we've been seeing out of Payton Pritchard is something that we haven't seen since Isaiah Thomas has left the Boston Celtics. I think the performance tonight was a huge spark plug for this team, and I think when they tried to shy away from Payton Pritchard during that final quarter, they were trying to spread that hot hand around the team. So so Jaylen Brown can catch a little fire. So Jason Tatum can get a little bit of that momentum going as well. Getting Kristaps involved. And I think that if Pritchard is able to have that positive effect on the roster, I think we'll stop seeing those struggles when Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum are off the court. I think that they should be able to find their individual success, especially when they are the main scorer on the court without the other one on there. And I think once they start finding their own looks, it will come naturally to them. And I think just getting Pritchard to facilitate for them and being able to make those guys' jobs and lives a lot easier will go a long way. I mean, we know Tatum can take on those ISOs, but teams will figure things out very quickly and will start doing those doubles. And just getting everyone else involved is something that the Celtics have been very good at in the past. And when that happens during a game, the score is up by 20 to 30 at post game. I think that they're looking to create that more often, but we're seeing a little bit too many independent performances more than team performances.
Do we think I just had this idea pop in my brain while Franco was talking, and he mentioned something about the isolation and the doing it yourself. You know, there's a correlation here, right? Between the three players who, if I were to ask you guys, maybe I'm wrong here, but the three best facilitators right now this year are probably Tatum, Pritchard, and White, right? That's kind of like the three best guys that the Celtics have to facilitate the offense, right? What do they all have in common? They excel at the pick and roll, at that high screen and roll, that action. And when you look at some of the guys that haven't been able to facilitate very well with the Celtics, Holiday, Brown, they can't run, right? They can't run that high pick and roll very effectively. Is that something that maybe Boston needs to look at and steering away from that high pick and roll when certain guys aren't on the floor? Because they try it.
Kristaps is back. I wouldn't eliminate it.
Well, yeah, I believe really one of my biggest things is, yes, for sure, if you look at the personnel who can run the high pick and roll, it's no doubt those guys that you mentioned versus the players who cannot. Brown and Holiday, they're not as good as Tatum, Pritchard, and White. But I really want to hone in, though, on Pritchard, White, and Holiday. I think what separates them this season so far, and I kind of touched on it with Holiday and White's defense earlier, but now we want to switch over to the offensive end of the floor. Pritchard's just been a better attacker. I mean, he really puts the defense on their toes better than Derek White and Drew Holiday right now. And I think last season, Derek White was more of the attacker on the offensive end of the floor. We saw Drew Holiday. He was more of that spot-up shooter in the corner, on the wing, and he also got his cuts to the rim, and that's when we'd really find him. Yet this season, it looks like Holiday and White, I should say more White, though, because like I just mentioned with Holiday, White is a little bit less inclined to attack than he was last season. Just a little bit. I don't see the same attacking force towards the rim as we did last season, because at this point in 2023-24, we were looking at Derek White as a potential all-star, and part of that all-star bid was Derek White is attacking the rim like a legitimate scorer. He's not just standing on the perimeter hitting a bunch of threes, and that's where the bulk of his points are coming from. Yes, he did that efficiently last season, but not only was he on the perimeter lighting it up from three, attacking teams in that way, but he was going to the rim and really putting defenses on their toes and finishing and scoring at the rim. This season, I don't really get that same sense from Derek White in terms of the forcefulness he goes and attacks the rim with. Yes, we've seen it at times in a few games, but really overall this season, I think Pritchard, he's the guy who teams are really and defenses are really more honed in on in terms of this guy is quick downhill. He can get to the rim really quick. And not only can he get to the rim really quick, he can step back and hit a 30-foot three-pointer in our face like it's nothing. And he is one of the most confident three-point shooters in the league. So I think Pritchard, he has a little bit more of a dynamic offensive game this year. And really looking at all their playmaking, Pritchard, he's in season number 5, I want to say. Is this season 5 for Pritchard already? It's just crazy. He's been in the league half a decade.
5 years.
Already. Making me feel old.
I know, because it still seems like Payton Pritchard's a rookie. It seems like yesterday we were talking about him as a second, third year player going, where's his spot? Where is his spot on this team? And now he's arguably a top 5, top 3 player on the squad. But despite that, he's still very young. He's still developing at this point in his career, and he has developed into a better playmaker as time has moved on. And why wouldn't he? He's playing with one of the best teams in the entire NBA, playing with phenomenal playmakers around him. I mean, even beforehand, he played with Kemba Walker. I mean, that is
good guards. He's had some really good guards.
Exactly. And Payton Pritchard, up to this point, I think we definitely have to be looking at him going, he's closer to the level of Holiday and White than we think he is. Now, Holiday and White, they should have more defensive intangibles to them because of their length, their experience, and just looking at all the personnel matchups on the floor, you have to have those two things if you're going to be a really good basketball team. But Pritchard, his activity, as his athleticism, his speed, that's really what's kind of setting them apart a little bit right now. And I think that's been definitely Pritchard's, in terms of what he's done better than those guards this season, or what's adding an extra element to the Celtics offense during the times he's out on the floor. I think Pritchard, he's that younger player, and he is developing. He is becoming better. And the conversation, I don't want to see, this is my thing right now. It really feels like we're trashing on Holiday and White, specifically myself right now. But I don't want to put them too much in the background because they're still very important to the Celtics team. They're still starters. They're still going to have to be amazing for the Celtics to go far in the playoffs again. But Pritchard, we definitely have to give him some credit that he's loosened the gap or closed the gap a little bit between himself and those players. He's not just some, into the bench player we're bringing in and we hope his minutes are all right. But he's legitimately making a name for himself, as right now, of course, he's favored to win 6th Man of the Year. But furthermore, it's just in the rotation. He deserves more of those minutes, and his minutes are becoming more and more important.
Just real quick, I think it's a fair assumption to make that Derek White and Drew Holiday are no longer, under Joe Mazzulla's offense, traditional point guards. They have kind of been developed and morphed into 3-and-D wings. Now, shorter 3-and-D wings, but when you look at their play style, like Seamus said, and Holiday has done a better job. Honestly, he's gotten kind of unlucky at the rim this year. I know that sounds crazy, but he has. But like when you look at how they've been playing this year, guys, they're not really. They're no longer the traditional facilitating guard. They're kind of a 3-and-D wing now. That's how I would classify their games.
Yeah,
part of that is
I think that ties right back to your first. Yeah, and I think that ties back to your first point into why this team is struggling when either or Tatum or Brown are off the court. I think if Holiday and White pick up the offensive end as a playmaker that we've seen in the past, we'll start to see that success, and it will just become more team ball.